What's going on? What's going on? It's Friday, as usual. I don't know about you, but this has been a wildly busy, crazy, oh my gosh, holy smokes, this is happening. Oh my gosh, why is that happening type of week. If you happen to tune in, please drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. If you want to jump in onto the comments, I'm using a third-party platform, so please hit the link above wherever you see this video down below. Hit that link so I can see your comments. I'd love to engage with you. I don't like doing these streams as a just kind of like as a whatever. I love to be able to do these and interact with you. So, I mean, honestly, it gets boring after a little bit if it's just all on my own. So, just want to say a real quick shout out to our sponsor of the show, Tax Strategist of America with Carlotta Thompson. Kid you not, she left the IRS to help entrepreneurs nationwide, and we all know that good God Almighty, we need help in that area. Man, it is the other side of our mental health. Hey, it's like, ironically enough, my birthday's April 16th, so it's kind of like celebration of tax season, so it makes perfect sense, right? Not really, that's a kind of a stretch, but whatever. So tonight is free flow. I want to, last week I was talking about what in the world is what made me want to forgive my dad. I was just interviewed on a podcast that was actually, it's going to air here in the next 2 weeks or so, another one actually, and we were talking about like it's not just enough to want to forgive, not for someone else's sake, but for your own sake, right? Want to make sure that you're forgiving somebody that is, legitimately on the same, on the same wavelength, but also you don't want to do it for them because if you do it for the sake of somebody else, what's going to happen is they have control over how you feel and the outcome of your decision. And so part of what I was hitting on in that podcast was that it's not just enough to want to forgive, right? It's a matter of not just wanting to forgive, but also having the different tools in place to protect your heart going into it. Someone once said that you want to be in a relationship with someone where you affect them and they don't infect you. And so I want to highlight something in that because when it comes to wanting to forgive someone, right, wanting them to reciprocate that back, that doesn't always happen. There's a lot of people here in Huntsville. I'm out of Huntsville, Alabama. For those that were tuning in from wherever in the world, it is interesting to see. Interesting to see the different responses. It's very interesting to see. When it comes to talking with people and like how people what they say about when it comes to forgiving and forgetting. Like just really quick, no one can ever forget what happened. It's impossible to forget your history. However, you don't have to let it control your response. Okay. One of the biggest things, and if y'all are dropping comments, please hit the link above or below with this video so that way I can see it. I'm using a third-party platform. But when it comes to forgiving for your own sake and your own sanity, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, it still happens. This is why I practice walking forgiveness every single day. But man, I needed to let go of not. I needed to let go of the desire to want to go back and change it. There's always a truth threaded through having the bad case of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And what took place with me needing to put those tools in place to protect myself, I needed to do it in accordance to how I saw myself. And so I needed to first work on how I saw myself and not just to forgive and let that go, but in accordance to my own self-respect, my own confidence, my own dignity, I needed to be able to put those things in place to protect my heart. So going into it, the boundaries in place, I understood what exactly I needed to do to make sure that when I went into this whole entire situation to forgive, I wasn't going to do it for the sake of I told you so, right? I wasn't going to do it for out of spite. Like I needed to stop role playing in my mind. That's kind of where I left off a second ago. But I don't know about you, but when sorry, I totally drifted off on that. Squirrel. If you don't know me just yet, I'm known to do that kind of like, but I'll bring it back. Don't worry. Just hang in there with me. But I was talking about that, and it's like I wanted to forgive, not in the sake. See, I probably just drifted off again. Again, drop a comment. Let me know if I, kind of like if I go off on a rabbit trail. I remember wanting to forgive, but I didn't want to feel justified. I still wanted to have the control and the power to go back and turn back time and do what I thought I could have done better. And that's where a lot of times it holds back people from forgiving. When it comes to just not just letting it go, but when I say let it go, a lot of times what people hear is forgetting it, A, B, excusing it, or C, allowing it to happen again. And that's not the truth. When it comes to forgiving, you have to be able to, again, what I said earlier, be in a relationship where they don't infect you and you affect them. Or in other words, where you impact them and they don't infect you. And so boundaries create structure. Boundaries create structure to relationships. So this way, just like sheetrock in a house, right? You have walls, not doorways, right? You want to make sure that you create the necessary walls. So that way, anytime someone tries to walk through said doorway that is now a wall, right? Any of you flippers that are out there, any of you wholesalers, any of you guys that are in my network that are watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyone who's in construction, remodeling, whatever the case is, you and I both know that you can easily make a doorway into a wall. It's all about just redoing it and just remodeling the whole thing and filling in whatever you need to, filling it in. But that's what happens when you go back into a relationship to forgive and let go. You're not allowing that to not just to control your response and be like kumbaya, ho ho ho, it's okay, sarah sarah. It has everything to do with boundaries and saying, look, I love myself enough to not let you treat me this way anymore. I love you. Again, love is a choice, not a feeling, right? But I love you, but I'm not going to allow you to treat me this way anymore. And the reason why is because when this happened, it made me feel blah, 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 blah. And that's where you get into miscommunications, disconnects in wildly different things. Because here's the thing, people do what they believe is the right thing at that time, regardless if it's wild or insane or just plain stupid. What happens is people don't do what you think they should do better until they see it themselves. And what happens is, since you guys know my story about grief, and if you haven't, just go check it out on griefrecovery.co on the podcast down below. But there's gonna be a time where there's going to be a time where you need to make sure that what was done in the past is known. That's a painful conversation, especially with somebody who doesn't want to face the facts or face reality. And that's the case where my dad was at. I kid you not, man. Anyone, drop a comment wherever you're seeing this at and let me know. All the old heads, let's be real. It is the hardest thing to get them to admit they're wrong. Okay. No joke. And so I remember being 16, 17 years old, and I'm talking to this guy who's over 40, and his definition of respect doesn't start until 40, right? And I'm in his eyes, I don't know my head from a hole in the ground. I probably have 3 chest hairs at the time, no joke. Okay, late bloomer there, but and late bloomer here. But now, jokes aside, though, I was intimidated to set down these boundaries with my dad because he's older. He's 3 times my width. Dude was stout. And the irony was, there's a scripture in the Bible that says that correct your elders with humility. And that's one of the wisest things that I ever heard. And it came down to the point to where I needed to make sure I did every single thing that he asked me to do according to, of course, my convictions, and I didn't, overstep my moral boundaries. But one of the biggest things was, I'm like, Dad, walk me through that and help me understand how you got there. I ain't got time to do all that. You're going to have to. Walk me through it. And what happened was the stupidity that I noticed and recognized from afar, right? Kind of like these long shot sight. He began to say, "Oh, Dad, okay, I see how that wouldn't work." And it's funny because, excuse me, it's funny because I had to walk that man back through, and I had to have so much patience for myself. Mary, what's up? But I had to have patience for myself. I had to make sure that, for one, I had to keep my anger under control. Yeah, it was difficult. I really, truly was a theme. One of the people ask all the time. I'm going to cut myself off and just interject another thought. People ask all the time, how hard was it to forgive him? And it was flat out a war. And I'm not just saying that, just say it anyways. It was a war battling with my dad to forgive him and let that go, but in the sense of where it was literally one step at a time. Oh, good Lord, have mercy. I'll tell you this. Shane tried to lie to me about my humanity and he used it against me. Okay. And a lot of times it keeps people back from wanting to do that work internally. You have to do the deep work inside your heart. In order to forgive someone else and let that go and let it stop bothering you, you have to untangle that and do that deep work yourself. Like, get a daggum journal. Get a daggum journal. Get one that you like, something that's nice. This isn't a cheap pen. Okay, this is not something that you just buy from Dollar General. I like it. It's okay. That's just me. Get something a journal that feels good in your hands, and that way you can actually have something. I mean, this is something that I got from somebody else, and but I like thick, journals. But I like the other ones too that I can, fold up in my pocket and put in my butt pocket and just walk around with and have it anywhere I go. I just like to write notes because I have a lot of ideas. It helps me mentally to get these ideas out of my head. And so when it came down to getting all of those thoughts out of my mind, all these different things. Okay, we all, those of us who are struggling with forgiving somebody, we all, correct me if I'm wrong, just call it out. When it comes to replaying and role playing, two different things. Replaying and role playing, the different outcomes. If they do this, then this happens. If then that, right? It's ironic that we are so daggum good at role playing, but what if we role played about our lives, our dreams, our visions instead of that? Because what happens is that unforgiveness, that bitterness, what can happen is that it will have rent inside of your own mind. It'll rent space free of charge, and you take all the risk. Because what happens after a while, your focus is always on that, right? And it's wild because mentally you got to get the thoughts out of your head first so that way you can have a different perspective. That was the biggest thing for me, along with prayer and worship, but there was also an alongside community too. But when it came down to getting the thoughts out of my head, I had to also to take inventory of my own self-talk. That was a big thing. Stinking thinking and stinking talking, right? As we say here in the country. It is interesting when it comes down to I mean, just literally everything. When it came down to all of the different aspects, when it came down to just overcoming that, especially when it came down to the things that after a while, my dad was murdered when I was 18, and so there was a lot of stuff. Grief is a step-by-step thing, and that's not an easy battle. It's not an easy task to overcome, because the thing is with triggers and trauma, what happens is they are revealed over time. Okay, did you catch that? Triggers and trauma are revealed over time. They don't just pop up, bam, when someone dies and then say, okay, see you later. No, bro, they are dug deep inside of you, because what that person did to impact your life, it wasn't just one event. There were things over time that took it. Like, our heart is the garden, right? Really truly think about it. Our heart is the garden. As we grow older, soil is added on top of it. It's called experience, right? And the thing is, when it comes to time, things are going to come up that's going to remind you of that thing that out of nowhere is going to cause a trigger to pop up. And then that's when you can do the deep work and catch it. I mean, because at the end of the day, you're not going to overcome grief and all that trauma all at once. You got to have these mechanisms in place to catch it quicker when it does flare up, and to recognize it. And see, that's the thing. When you're progressing, when you can catch it faster, right? And so that was the biggest thing. I needed to first understand all of that. And thank God this is recorded, so you can go back in and rewind that and mull this over. But one of the biggest things was I needed to understand that I was not going to be I wasn't going to tackle all this all at once. It was going to be a bite-sized bits, step by step. All I needed to know is in my next step. As long as I can see it, I can do it, right? And the irony is that when it came down to, especially in business, especially in everything, like when it came down to me needing to be okay with not having it all down pat and good and ready to rock, like I needed to be okay with that. I needed to make sure that regardless of what mistake I made, I didn't beat myself up in retreat. Because what would happen is, oh Lord, just because you turn your life around and make a decision doesn't mean all the habits are dead, right? I'm gonna say that again, but slower, because I realize that my caffeine is kicking in. And yes, all of this is caffeine. This is all a luxurious Bang energy drink. And no, it's not a paid sponsorship, but bless God, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Lord have mercy. Just put a little logo, bing, right there, and I'm good to rock. But no, man. I mean, when it came down to, I'm sorry. So I completely blanked on what I said a second ago. Just hit the rewind button on the replay, or let me know if you remember what I said. See, I told you, rabbit trail. But yeah, see, I completely blanked. But when it, Mary, drop a comment and let me know also if I where I left off at. I'm so sorry. Brain fart. I've been having an abundance of brain farts today. It's okay. But oh, Lord have mercy. But and everyone on LinkedIn, let me know where I left off at. But one of the biggest things though was, and see, I know I was on a good track. Please help me get back on track. Lord have mercy. See, I'm not ashamed to admit it either. Like I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. Please let me know. And but okay, so I'm just gonna pick back up where I think I left off. But I had to do that deep work, and it'll come back to me. I bet it usually always does. But it's interesting because when it came, man, I really need to get back on track. I know I was on a good tangent. I was in a good flow. Caffeine. But where did I leave off at? Mary, please help me out. Help me out. Where did I leave off at? All right, but when it came down to setting those, so to catch it sooner. So see, told you again, I believe. And if that's not where I left off at, drop a comment and let me know. Okay, Lord have mercy. Sometimes confidence can be, it's cognitive distance, blah, 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 whatever. But one of the craziest things is that I really when you're able to practice, okay, you're not going to catch things right away, especially in the workplace, okay? Because at the end of the day, what happens when it comes down to all the stuff that can take place, life will punch you in the face. All right, the good old saying from Mr. Mike Tyson himself. He said that everybody's got a plan until they get hit. I'm sorry, hit. You gotta put that on the end of it. But anyways, when it comes down to it, every single time life is going to throw you a curveball. Okay, because at the end of the day, if you can capture something and then catch it sooner, it's okay to make a mistake. It's called being human, right? Hello, because at the end of the day, we're all growing. How in the world do you think all of our elders got experience? Hello. And here's the thing. Shame will try to convert your history into your identity, but don't let it. Hey, Brooke, how's it going? Shame will try and convert your history into your identity, because at the end of the day, it's going to try and disqualify the experience you just gained and the new understanding that you just gained by doing something. Sugar. The ironic part about that is that shame is going to try and abuse your efforts and say that it wasn't good enough because it wasn't perfect. Well, how the heck are you supposed to try? Hello, right? Like, my God. The dumbest thing in the world is getting mad at yourself for not knowing then what you know now. Hello. The best way out is through. Come on now. Come on, Becky. We got this. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, you have to make sure, because here's the thing. We got a full-time job with ourselves, right? Yeah. I don't know about you, but sometimes I can't handle myself. Sorry, that was the wrong time for a joke. But one of the right, everyone's like, Lord have Jesus mercy. But when I talk about heavy topics, I like to have fun. But one of the biggest things, though, is that shame will always try to tell you that what you did wasn't good enough, but dadgummit, you did something. Messy action is better than that perfect nothing. Last time I checked, 100% of zero is still zero. Hello. And the irony is that when it comes down to making that first step, the funny fact and the most ironic part is and our mind is saying, "You sure you want to do that?" Yeah, I am. Shut up. Goodness gracious. And the ironic part to all of it is that when you do it, then you feel like doing it. And it meaning whatever you need to do to make peace. In the context of protecting your heart and then doing the work with that person. And because, I mean, seriously, next week we're going to dig into, like, what in the world does it even mean to we're going to dig into some different topics next week, because I want all of you to let me know, like, have you ever dealt with somebody that doesn't give a rip whether or not what you do? Like, how do you go into forgiving somebody who just doesn't care or doesn't know? Because a lot of times people hurt us unintentionally, and I want you to think about that. You know, when it comes down to forgiving that person, what if they don't care? Or worse, what if they didn't even know? What if you've been living this entire time as the only one knowing you're a victim? That's a hard pill to swallow. That's like trying to swallow ink thinking it's Gatorade. I don't know about, I mean, it's a real quick story. I don't know about y'all. I remember when I was a partner in the first landscaping business, I went into Publix and I was so I'm hungry. I mean, yeah, very good point, Brooke. You know, and I'll circle back to that comment. Wait, what? Can you reword that? Hold on, I don't know which word should be replaced now for not. But I remember going to Publix. I remember working out on the field with the guys all day. I mean, we literally I think we were doing some hardscaping job, and I mean, oh my god, I was so freaking thirsty. I mean, like, to kind of set the playing field is 85, I think 80, 90 degrees outside, and the humidity was like 50, 60%. It was just rough. And I went into Publix and I went and grabbing something to drink, thinking it was water. Oh my god, it was sparkling water. That is pretty much how I felt. Like, I was like, what did I do to myself? Like, why? Because, like, literally, I'm over here in chug mode. Okay, I'm literally like, I'm grabbing this fountain to give me a cup, and I'm thinking, like, yes, 5 seconds away from heaven. I go to hoof it back and go. Sound like Porky the Pig from Looney Tunes over here, looking like I got snot boogers coming out my face, and it's not even making sense. Like, it's not even fair. But it was like, I'm like, what? I'm about to cry. Like, literally, I was struggling. I was on the struggle bus, man. It was so bad. But a lot of times when we think that we're going to hold on to bitterness, a lot of times that's the perfect picture of me thinking it was water and it was actually sparkling water. Because here's the thing, the kickback and the slap in the back of the head, what's going to happen is you're going to be the only one carrying that weight. Now, the wild part about holding on to that weight and not forgiving them, because here's the thing, people for some reason think that you have to forget what happened. Yeah, no. Here's the thing, forgiving doesn't mean you have to trust that person either, okay? Trusting them is a much different situation, as we say here in the South. A little bit different of a situation we do letting it back in. Because here's the thing, if you forgiving them doesn't mean that you're going to allow the same type of relationship to occur, to transpire. Nope, not a bit. No. Here's the thing, when your standards, personal standards, right. See, I'm over trying to say rise and raise at the same time. Is that rise? See, that Alabama's coming out at me. Hey, y'all, as we say, yeehaw. But But one of the biggest things though is that I had to understand that I needed to forgive, but not in the sense of forgetting, but not letting it control my responses. I had to unpack and say, why did that hurt? Why did that? Why? I mean, aside so many stories that were kind of like Captain Obvious on it, right? But like journal it out, write it out. Why in the world did it like? I mean, seriously, there are times where we feel guilty for journaling because it may get too dark. No, bro, these are raw emotions and real feelings. Like, get it out, because if you don't, it's gonna happen. Seeds grow into trees. No, no boy, no, not one bit. And the ironic part too is that with when you hold on to it, you're again. Remember, we talked about heart being soil. As time goes on, it compounds, and that becomes your perspective of everyone. It reminds you of them. I'll put money on it. Not really. I can't really justify it because everyone makes them up. But yeah, nope, nope. X-nay that. But seriously, not like 10 times out of 10. If you're mad about somebody or you're projecting or you have something that with an issue because of somebody how they look or whatever the case is, I guarantee it comes from hurt. Guarantee it. I can trace it back every time. And Brooke, I'm trying to make sure I understand your question. You said, "What if we did not, we didn't let others control our feelings?" I need to clarify. If you can, go a little bit deeper on that question. But when it comes to, I mean, shoot, when it comes down to just, I mean, anybody, when it comes down to them, not even letting them control your feelings. I mean, honestly, when it comes down to just not letting it affect you, because there are going to be times when it pops up, and this is the thing. Forgiveness is a gradual thing too. It's not. It doesn't really happen overnight, and a lot of times where you can measure whether or not you've really let that go and not affect you is by anything that reminds you of that person or whatever the case is, and if they're around you or whatever, if they come to mind and you're not as angry or you're not as sad or you're not as whatever that emotion that caused you, not ashamed or not intimidated, whatever that caused, whatever emotion that caused. If that doesn't stop popping up right away, and it starts becoming less, then you notice that you're progressing and you're growing. Like, it's wild because when it comes down to making sure that you don't carry that weight, bro. Like, I had to make sure that I had to realize my dad, for some whatever reason, none of my business. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a mind reader, nor do I have a time machine, which I would love a time machine. Doctor Strange is my favorite character. Not gonna lie, no shame. Sorry, not sorry. And I'm a huge Marvel nerd. And yeah, all emotions start with a thought, and the irony is that emotions are cemented with words, and they're even too. They're validated by friends, right? By your circle, and that's why you have to audit your circle. And no pun intended on the our sponsor, which is Tax Strategists of America. Carlotta Thompson, Brooke is actually on the team. They actually will help you save from paying taxes legally. Carlotta is actually a previous IRS agent, and she has helped tons of people, guys. I'm telling you, she's a rock star. So, anyways, when it comes to our community, I kid you not, when it, like literally, it's one of the strangest things because out of our own mouth, we have life and death, and I guarantee if you take note of your own self-talk, what happens is that's what's fueling everything. Because then what happens is you change your self-talk, your standards raise. I don't know if y'all have ever tried this, but Purpose Driven Life is a really good book. Fresh Air by Chris Hodges, another phenomenal one. Intentional Living by John Maxwell is a great one as well. But I'd encourage you to listen to a book that that encourages you. Something that's what you're going through. The best way to identify what kind of book you need to listen to is look at the problems you're facing. Come listen to the solution. And ironically enough, if you try to listen to a book while you're asleep, you'll think differently that day. Give it a shot for a week. I guarantee your life will never be the same. And it's interesting because our words control our thoughts, cement what others validate around us, but also too, it's a whole entire triune, literally closed logic or closed loop of the thoughts that you say, the words that control them, but also when you are putting out there in the world, people are hearing it, and that is what's teaching them how to treat you. Did y'all catch that? I really hope you caught that. Because what happens is how we feel about ourselves is what we say out in the world. Out the heart, the mouth speaks. And it's wild. It's wild because the ironic part is that it doesn't matter what they do to do anything. You can be like, here's the kicker, bro. Like literally, no one beats us up worse than ourselves. Sometimes our number. Well, here's the kicker. Our number one asset and our number one enemy looks us in the mirror every single day, right? And what blows my mind is, when it comes down to letting something bother the living daylights out of us, it starts and ends with us. Oh, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that though. And what happens is, if you can swallow that horse pill on the other side, if you can walk through that gate and believe that you are responsible for everything that goes on in your life, outside of the things you can control, there's a power there. There's a true power, because we're the only ones that we can control. What other people do, that's on them. Totally on them. And the beautiful part is that people will qualify themselves right out your life. Love you later. And it's insane because a lot of times people act like you think, like they tell you stuff as if like you need them. You don't owe anyone anything, and you darn well don't need anyone to be happy. A lot of times we don't want to forgive or let go because, there's so many different scenarios. Good God. There's, and this is all case by case too. Everyone's story is different. Everyone's circumstance is different. Everyone's background is different. Like, no single circumstance is the same. There's no way to do a blanket statement. But the mechanics on forgiveness, though, when it comes to unpacking it, walking through it, and practicing it, that's a daily thing. Literally a daily thing. Like taking a shower, brushing teeth. Like you have to. Like for me, it's a second by second sometimes, because there are so many things going on during the day that I got to make sure I have my head straight. See, there's this old saying called trust but verify, right? I had to develop this habit for myself and say, hey, really quick, did you mean this or did you say this, just to make sure that I heard it right? What that will do, that one simple practice, and I'm going to reiterate this, and then we're going to hear the next 10 minutes in the show. But I want you to think about this. Like, whenever you think someone says something sideways to you or whatever, like before you get into on-site mode, and y'all know what I'm talking about. Before you go from 0 to 100 real quick in 10.2 seconds, 1.2 seconds, regurgitate it back to somebody and say, hey, really quick, it sounded like you said this. Is that what you meant? Oh, no way. I meant this, and this. Oh, gotcha. So you're saying blah, 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 blah. And then make sure that you just keep reiterating it back. And what happens, you're not going to sound stupid. You're actually going to sound wise. Because you want to verify everything that they're saying. Now, if you keep going on to every single line in detail about that, and okay, then you got to use some common sense, okay? But just saying, like if you say the sign is over there, now when you say the sign is like that kind of stuff, like seriously. But it's important to make sure that you verify what people are saying, so that way you can be on the same page, because understanding is the most valuable thing that you can ever acquire. Businesses, tiny homes, any kind of assets, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're all going to burn down. They're going to wither away. They're going to disappear. I mean, go look at some abandoned buses in the desert. See how long they last. Everything's going to wither away. But one thing that you can take with you every single day is understanding. Make that your number one goal. Not about right or wrong, but make understanding your number one goal and watch how everything just falls apart. I wouldn't say fall apart, but fall in place. If you need one thing to focus on, make understanding your target. Now, how do you do that? Of course, I do that through Jesus Christ, but that's the biggest thing, though, is that I lean on God to make sure that I have clear understanding, and I'm not making a butt out of myself, right? I don't want to be a gluteus maximus, but it's interesting because at the end of the day, if you want to, there's different things about being right and wrong, and if you make understanding your core focus, what that's going to do is birth humility in you, but also to change your entire paradigm shift on everything that's going on. Again, not about right or wrong, because that's what fuels pride. Yes, you need to distinguish what has happened and what's taken place, and not to excuse anything and not to justify anything either. But if you make understanding your target, put that in your crosshairs. Not about how good you feel, not about how they treated you, not how they need to treat you. How about you? How about how you treat yourself? And then seek understanding about what all happened, but make sure you get it out of your mind, out of your brain. Download your thoughts on a paper with a pen. Okay? And make sure that you put in some effort every day to unpack that, unravel it. It's gotta be daily. It's not an event. Things happen all the time. Well, they happen all the time. And half the time it has nothing to do with you. Like, there is a lot of times where people will do stuff, say stuff, respond a certain way, and it has nothing to do with you. But you never would have known that if you didn't ask. So again, rewind, watch all the way through, but like there's certain things that you can put in place to protect your heart while also to bridging the gap. But you gotta protect yourself. You gotta go in knowing that this is my line in the sand, I'm not gonna cross this, etc., so on and so forth. So with that being said, closing out. If you have not registered for the Grief and Recovery Workshop happening next Tuesday, I don't know if y'all know this, but over on LinkedIn, we crossed over 1,800 subscribers organically on the weekly newsletter, and you can actually go check it out. And you can actually register for the workshop. It is absolutely free, literally. And the value in this workshop, we're going to make sure that I am going to walk with you through this. We are not going to walk into this workshop together and then walk out of it the same we came in. My goal is for you to have understanding and peace. You're not going to leave this workshop feeling like you just heard everyone else's misery, and then you're going to be like, oh God, no. No way, Jose. And if your name is not Jose, that's totally fine. But one of the biggest things, though, is making sure that you leave with peace, understanding, and freedom more than when you walked in. Now, can I guarantee the chains are going to be broken when you walk out of the workshop? No, not 100%. But what we can do is make progress. Progression over perfection, right? Okay. And if we can work together in this workshop, 30 people were capped out. I think we got like 20 spots left. The first one anyway, so it's no big deal. But I want to have a small circle with you, so that way we can dig through and have a conversation instead of being like, okay, class, let's do this. No, I don't like doing that. I hate that style of stuff. Like, it's just boring. But we're going to really work through this and unpack it. I can't wait to see you on there. I can't wait to accommodate and welcome you and be your host of the workshop. A huge shout out and big thank you again to Tax Strategists of America for sponsoring the workshop. This is amazing because at the end of the day, a lot of stuff that triggers us are taxes. Lord have mercy. If you need help, just drop a comment wherever you see this video at. I'll make sure that I'll connect you with Carlotta and her team. Brooke she's coming over on Facebook. But It's just amazing to see everyone that's come together. And when it comes to our mental health, there are outside impacts and influences that can factor into our stress. And I just want to make sure that we connected to the right people with the right resources to be able to make sure that I can make your life a little bit easier in multiple ways. And so, again, if you have not registered for the workshop, go to griefandrecovery.co. The podcast will have all the episodes, but about halfway down the page, you'll see the workshop registration. Hit that, just save your seat. Again, we're capping it out at 30 people. And usually everyone, for any kind of like virtual events, everyone bum rushes, like it's Black Friday on the day before. So just go ahead, and if you think you're going to join it, just go ahead and grab your spot, no sweat. So that way you can get the actual invite information into the Zoom room. It's going to be sent out an hour before the room happens. So if you feel like you haven't gotten any information, you've already registered, don't sweat it. I designed it that way so that way you only get the invitation information an hour before the workshop happens, so that way you know to show up, okay? And so keep an eye out for it, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that we have people in there that are meant to show up. I don't care if it's 3 people. I don't care. We're going to have an awesome workshop, because if there's only one other person in there or 2 other people in there, literally, I mean, sorry, I say 1 or 2, kind of like switching back and forth. I don't care if it's one other person, but with one other person, it's a one-on-one counseling session, and that's not a group, 2 or more, right? But yeah, just thank you so much for your time tonight, and hopefully this encouraged someone. And again, if you're tuning in from all over the world, drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, and thank you again for giving me an hour of your time on a Friday evening for the Grief and Recovery Encouragement Show. I thank you so much, and I'll see you on the newsletter. Yeah, totally butchered that outro. It's okay. See you later. I'm tired.